Welcome to Reality Quest. Today is Valentine's Day, and Jay and I are sitting by some candlelight, just having a romantic evening.
Sponsored by Yankee Candle.
Ooh, Is that what those are? I don't think so.
No, probably not. No, I don't think we are that big.
Sponsored by your diffuser, your fancy diffuser.
Oh, that's like a random knockoff Amazon brand. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I always mention my mom in all of these episodes, but she's the one that got me that. So shout out.
This episode is dedicated to and sponsored by, what's your mom's name?
Tara.
Tara.
Yeah.
Silvis?
No.
Oh,
God,
shit.
we did this last time too.
Damn it!
No,
Okay.
it's just Tara. I know. It's complicated. Life is...
Thanks, Tara.
Life's strange.
Okay, well, we hope you all enjoy this episode. Jay and I are so awkward.
Oh my God.
I want to vent or
yeah.
confess that intros and outros are the hardest thing for us to do.
It is literally the worst.
know
Sometimes
why.
not. We've actually had a pretty good streak. The last several episodes, the intro and outro, we've like nailed it. Literally like 15 minutes. We killed both of them and we were done. This one, for whatever reason, we're just in the wrong mindset.
I feel like I'm a bit giggly, so it's been hard to do it. But I feel like when we're in the conversations, we have a much easier time with natural flow. But when we're doing these intros, outros,
feel natural anymore.
Feels so unnatural. And so we just stumble and honestly when we first started this, do you remember our first intro, outro?
Oh, God.
It took like 10 hours.
Realistically, it was like a solid 3 or 4 hours.
Just to get a few minutes of conversation.
Yeah, it was bad. It was
so bad. Anyways, with that...
Well, let's just talk. What are we doing today? We are bringing on Jude Dai.
Yes.
One of the most wholesome individuals you could come across. I don't think we've reused that word too many times.
Yeah.
We do tend to say wonderful for all of the humans.
Yeah, Jay and I were like, how can we describe people without saying they're an amazing human being every single time? But that is what they are. We just have this luxury of talking with these amazing human beings.
Humans.
It's so great.
You are so good.
So good. But yeah, I mean, you know what? I'll stick to it. I say it too much and I'll stick to it again. Jude is an amazing human being.
Wonderful person. So wholesome. She is a lover of experience and getting out into the mountains, and she is also an ambitious entrepreneur who has come from a background in business, consulting, and product management.
Yeah, she's a badass, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And she and I shared, we both used to work at the same company, PwC.
I know, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea beforehand.
Yeah, that was pretty cool for me. It's always nice to meet people that have a similar background to you because especially in this industry, a lot of the people you meet have a software engineering background or just a tech background, computer, engineering, computer sciences. And so meeting somebody that has a bit more of that business management, product management background and seeing how she's been navigating this industry and how she's been adding her value to it. It's comforting to find like-minded people.
I think we were all able to connect on that particular topic pretty well, just given where you all had come from in the past, and I had spent the entire previous year focused on like product and project management and consulting in general. So we did mention briefly here that she is an entrepreneur. She has her own company.
Oh, right. So basically, Immersive Square is the company that Jude started, which, by the way, she learned what VR was at a meetup and then immediately almost like started to jump into the industry and just decided to start up her own business.
Yeah, within a year, she was organizing local events and helping uplift others who had their own sort of projects and endeavors that they wanted to get off the ground.
Yeah, she's a total go-getter, and what's more than that is what she's doing through Immersive Square is something that's so beneficial to communities and people in general, but also the furthering of VR and giving it to the public or spreading it around to the public.
Yeah.
And so what Immersive Square does is they'll do pop-ups or they'll partner with events and organizations that are already going on and bring VR, tie it in some way or the other to an event that is already going on and essentially just bring it to the public.
Totally. She really cares about just opening up accessibility to VR. Most people don't necessarily know about all of the hardware and new devices that are coming out. So one of the sort of central tenets of Immersive Square is to take VR and immersive experiences and overcome the geographical disadvantage and bring it to where they live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And one of the other things about her is that she goes beyond business. She's also an artist, and she's a VR creator. She's done some of her own experiences, and she was also selected this past year for Oculus Launchpad, which is a special program that Oculus puts on for promising creators.
yeah, really exciting sort of step forward for her and her whole endeavor.
Yeah, so she's got this business mindset and business background, which is where the conversation essentially starts, talking a little bit about her background and how she got into VR and where she started pulling from in terms of her experience. But she's got that. She's got this artist mindset where she's also creating, and she's got this connection with nature and the world and this grounding. She's just got a really deep, balanced perspective on life, and she's just wise, man. You know, she's just super wise. I felt like listening to her, I was like, yes, just tell me more and like comfort me about the world.
Be my sensei in life.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think there's a lot of solidarity to be felt here, I hope, as people listen, because all of us, the people who are listening and the people that are part of the industry and people who are interested in working in the industry, anyone
who's felt that strain over the past however many years of the ebb and flow of popularity of VR, really.
Right. They can understand what she's going through, and she's so honest about it all. And what I really appreciate is it's really easy to try to put on a face about all of this and say like everything's going well and I'm super successful and everything's moving forward, and she's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it'll work out. I'm going to check back in 2 years because like this is honestly a bit infeasible for, it's not a big money maker in terms of trying to tackle VR right now because it's just not widespread.
Right.
And so everyone's just fighting that good fight, knowing that you could technically have a way more lucrative business doing something else in a different industry. And so she's sticking to it so far, and we love hearing about her journey and hope that she continues to stick with it. But that's enough of that. I'll stop yapping. I feel like you get the sense that we love Jude. We hope you love her too. And just enjoy the episode. Right? Jay? Do you have anything?
Yeah. Yeah, no. Let's get right into it. I don't think we need any more dialogue on.
We don't have a line. Want to do the Here's Jude?
Hey, Jude.
Ooh. No, ready? Let's do Here's Jude on 1, 2, 3. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. So
here's Jude.
So there's one thing that is very important. Well, Staples means a lot to me. Was as an immigrant, I have to get work sponsored visa
Oh, right.
and a work sponsored green card.
Yeah.
And then it's a very long process, and you have to stick to one certain type of job and one certain type of company throughout the process.
Yeah.
Lucky I liked the company, and they moved me around within different
allowed you
groups.
to do different roles and okay. So they were part of the process of really enabling you to gain citizenship, or what was the transition?
I think so. Yeah, I think just to help me to be here.
Yeah. They gave you a way of security.
Give me a way of security.
Yeah. I mean, one of my really close friends is Jamaican, and she's going through that and having a lot of trouble. She's so smart. She studied actuarial mathematics.
Wow.
Which,
I've never even heard of that field.
And I couldn't even tell you about it. That's how smart it is. But she has been struggling in New York because she only has so many job opportunities because she has to get sponsored, and so just that in itself is hard enough and is very threatening to your position in your career.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with like the next step is, do you actually like that job? Is that actually the best skill that you can do and advance your career at? And it's like you don't even have the time or the opportunity to care.
Yeah.
You have to just accept the job and do what you're doing and try
Exactly.
to continue working for them. So
I imagine
Make the
most
best
people,
out of it, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd imagine most people probably don't even have that luxury. It's that just you find something that you can do
Very
Yeah.
lucky.
and just cling on to it because that's the only thing that's going to
Right.
give you a position to stay in the country.
yeah,
right?
oddly
Yeah.
enough, it is. Yeah.
yeah. And you, Jude, felt lucky, it seems like, to enjoy what you did at Staples. And you were doing product management, right?
I started with their internal audit group.
Oh, okay.
That,
Oh,
that
okay.
was an extension from my audit firm background.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And again, very lucky because got the chance to see every single business operation of a big company,
Yeah.
from supply chain to treasury, and really
Yeah.
helped me to understand how different parts of a company are putting together.
Right.
So how did you move into product management while you were there at
Yeah.
Staples eventually? How did that transition happen? Because I've been talking to a lot of people about PMing or product management for the last few years now because it just keeps coming up.
Right.
And it always seems like there's certain types of people, certain types of personalities that always tend to get or gravitate towards that kind of position. But it always seems a little bit more difficult to pin down exactly why that is, and then also who is telling you when you're going through school, like, oh, well, you're learning to be a PM. Like, were you ever taught that?
No.
That's not a job that you go and you just go to school for.
Yeah, PM is not. It's interesting. It's a relatively new type of job, responsibility, a role in companies. And I think when I was in Staples, there weren't any product management group until when I started to be interested in digital, and then that's the time they started to form product team.
Okay.
And then I have had established great relationship when doing internal audit with different groups. And then one of the day, and the head of that the product team approached me and say, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about that position did you like?
Or I guess
lot
drew
of,
you towards it. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of uncertainty. It's a new organization. It's very much about defining your responsibility, right? And defining the success factors. I like that. And also a lot of up and cross type of skill set.
Interdisciplinary, broad perspective.
Yeah, broad perspective. And also it gets very technical, which I like.
Yeah.
So, okay, which is an interesting thing about that type of role is that you have to have a broad perspective and be able to look at things from a lot of different angles, but also be able to dive deep whenever the need arises.
Yeah, it's a very much the deep generalist type of role.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Very interesting. Yeah,
deep generalist. I've never...
That is exactly what Jay is.
Very deep generalist.
Yeah, I feel so. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
I mean that as a compliment.
Well, I think the sort of thing that's really been bouncing around my brain about this for the past year or so is that growing up, so many people will tell you, you don't want to be a jack of all trades,
right?
Because you'll be a master of none. You won't get good at any particular thing, and then, especially more recently, and in the tech industry in general, you have like product teams, and you're just talking about how Staples established a sort of a product team or a number of them, and that's when the need arose for someone that could have this sort of broad general skill set across a lot of different domains, but also was able to just dive deep on different things as they come up and adapt quickly and tackle an open-ended situation like that.
Yeah,
That's hard for most people to do, because if you're focused at all.
Well, then the business process and the background of evaluating business process back in the consulting firm really kick in right away.
Yeah.
I guess there's that perspective that you gain from working on all kinds of different problems.
Yeah, I think looking back, all the different jobs you do, there's it's a building block that you get.
Yeah.
And you will never know what house you're going to build, right? No one tells you this is the template you're going to go with your life.
Yeah.
But just collect your building blocks as you go. And then once you get there, you will know.
You'll find out, what you're building.
Don't throw those building blocks away.
I
Your
love
company's
that.
like, hey, we bought this land. You've never seen it before, but here, we're going to drop you in, and here's a bunch of materials.
Yeah, solve your own problems.
Figure out what makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a Steve Jobs quote about that I'm going to absolutely butcher, but it's because I'm not the type of person that quotes things and can remember it.
It's all right.
But it has something to do with basically like you know, it won't make sense until later on. Like you look back and suddenly all of the pieces come together and you understand what you were set out to do. But it makes it really hard when you're getting there. And you can imagine for somebody like him, there was probably a lot of people telling him along the way, you know, that he was crazy, especially, you know, and actually in things like the XR industry, especially you're creating building blocks and we don't understand really what we're creating yet, and it's not there. So there are even industries and things in life that make it even harder for you to understand what you're building towards.
Yeah, I feel like that's just that's the general problem in tech, is that because things are evolving so quickly, you're always like, there's always somebody that has to jump into that unknown space, try to start prodding around and figuring out what might work. And then it doesn't you just got to be comfortable with it not fully making sense until you get to somewhere where things start to solidify and you can reflect back and say, okay, here's things that we're actually doing right. These things we can, you know, do better on, but now we kind of have our direction. But nobody's laying that out for you.
Right.
No,
to begin with.
I have an analogy for the XR industry, right? It's, you know, you're on an island, and it's not a reasonable expectation to ask us, where is the toilet? Where is the townhouse? Right? Where is the church?
Where's
or
the
whatever,
grocery
you know?
store?
And we just arrived, and we're trying to figure out a way how far is to the other side of the island.
Right.
So it's not a
Like, how
reasonable
big is this
expectation.
place? Yeah.
Right.
How much land is out there?
Where's the toilet? I love that.
Right.
You're like, first things
man.
first, I need to use the bathroom.
Yeah. So speaking of building blocks, so in your road to VR, what were you thinking? So you're at Staples for 10 years.
Right.
And what was going on in your head then in terms of your future?
So I always liked experience.
Yeah.
That for sure that I knew.
Like user experience or customer experience?
No, life experience.
Life experience.
I always gravitated towards experience, and very curious about different culture and different country and things happening.
Okay,
in
so like
different
experience
places.
from different perspectives and for different people.
Yep.
And, okay.
And I paid attention to that, and I was lucky enough to be brought to the CIFX.
CIFX.
CIFX. Oh, okay.
CIFX. I think that was one of the first big conferences in Seattle.
Really?
Okay.
I didn't know that was, I'm going to say that old, meaning
3 years.
Meaning
3
4
years
years.
ago. Oh, that was 4 years.
Well,
I think 3 years ago. Was
is
it?
that, how quickly did you, I guess
Maybe
this all
that
goes
was the
back to how
second one.
quickly you decided, how quickly you jumped ship.
Oh, how quickly?
Because if you're saying CIFX was one of the first times you experienced VR, well, and you started working in VR in 2017, it's 2020 now.
Right.
But the consumer headsets didn't come out until 2015, 2016, right?
Correct.
Like the DK1.
So I'm just shocked that CIFX already existed before 2017.
I think they were the first ever VR related conferences I went to.
CIFX was? Okay.
That's cool.
In
I
Pacific Science Center.
think
back
I
then.
never-
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay,
yeah, so
that's-
that was the first one. You know, I moved I moved to Seattle in 2015, I think.
Okay.
And the first year was, the job is great. Seattle
What brought
opened it's a Staples.
Oh,
Staples
Oh,
had
you
a
moved with them.
had an innovation lab that needed some people
Oh.
over, and I was looking for something different, so I moved
Okay.
over. I was looking for something new to experience, and somehow Civics just came up in my meetup or whatever, and then I went there, and I bought a 3-day pass and was just going in and out. Pretty much tried every single thing that's available there. That was available there, and I was blown away. It was very, very immersive. Given it was my first experience with immersive technology, and it was a huge conference with all different type of technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the first one that really stuck with you was? Like, of all of the different VR experiences that you tried there, like which one kind of sticks out in memory?
I think it was the 360 piece called Cloud Over Cityr.
Cloud.
Oh, right. Clouds over Sidra or something.
Sidra, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
That sounds very familiar.
And that wasn't it's like a documentary style 360 video.
Yeah.
But was it a refugee camp? No.
Something like that.
Okay.
It was about kids playing soccer, just their life.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
A day in the life playing soccer at a refugee
Something like
camp,
that.
something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
right. Well, the reason it stuck with me, it was really the first time I was able to live, be so close to a culture and a life that I would never be able to see.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I took off my goggle, I remember there was chair, like 5-6 people were viewing at the same time.
Yeah.
And when I took off my goggle, I was very touched. I think I almost cried. Maybe I
feel the
cried.
water starting to
Maybe
well.
I cried. and I looked around and I saw people were wiping their eyes as well.
Yeah.
So in my heart, it was like, this is something that really have potential.
Yeah. It goes back to that sort of power of VR to generate empathy or create strong empathy for people.
Yeah.
I know, which is hard because I feel like such an overused statement.
Yeah.
I agree.
I feel like we just keep recycling that statement.
I totally
And it's like,
agree.
I don't know how to talk about it sometimes, right? It's
Yeah.
like, what does it really do? I mean, is it really empathy, or is it more like just the fact that it's literally putting you somewhere and giving you an experience that you literally can't have otherwise? Which isn't necessarily, I mean, yes, that's called empathy, like kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and seeing how they live.
Mm-hmm.
But you could argue that in a lot of ways for documentaries, and that it's just like one step more than that. But it's almost like I struggle with us constantly recycling that statement, because it's like in the case that you're talking about, Jude, and I've had similar experiences where it's just like, I mean, I'm by nature an empathetic person.
Yeah.
So what is it really doing for me? Is it making me feel even more empathetic towards these people? Or is it just that I'm just literally living something and experiencing something that I've never seen before in a way that I've never experienced before, that is very touching and realistic, or it just kind of almost shocks you because you've never experienced something like that. Whether it's something very real, like a 360 video of a refugee camp or about war or whatever it is, or if it's something like one of my favorite first ones, it was called like Take Flight. Do you remember this one? It's just so silly. But it was just like you're kind of flying over these cabs and then you stop and you start rising up into the air. And then in the air, there's like a bunch of celebrities. It's like
What?
It's like Alec Baldwin. Like they start just kind of appearing in the air, and you're like floating around with them.
Oh, I remember I saw, something
It was
like
like
that, yeah.
one of the first experiences, and I'm like, I don't know who. I'll have to find out like who created it, if you can still watch it, all this stuff. But it was like just the fact that I could fly over this like traffic and kind of be the camera like moving across, and then I would rise up, and it didn't make me sick or anything because of the way it was done. And then suddenly I'm literally flying in the sky, like hanging out with Alec Baldwin and some other celebrities. I mean, to me, it's like so perfect. It's like what you would never get that experience otherwise.
Right.
So, and that's not giving me empathy. I'm not like, oh, now I really know what it's like to fly with Alec Baldwin. And so I'm going to think differently, Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I'm interested in your thoughts, Jude, because I also know that you are a big fan of more experimental, I'll call it, or non-gaming, definitely non-shooter gaming experiences. And so given some of those first interests, do you have a way yet to talk about with people that don't understand like what it does for you?
Like, why is it unique in that regard?
Yeah, that's actually, you brought up that try not to overbeat the word empathy too much. I agree with you.
Yeah.
We jump into labeling too much. And then that word doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So it's like you are doing a performance review on someone. You say, you're great. Not specific enough, right?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I think it's important to explain the feeling and be more specific. Yeah, I've had a success in describing to people who never tried VR in almost like a movie script way. Just describe what it's about, leading people. So if you can describe an immersive experience without goggle, then that's successful. That's all storytellers should do. Right? You stand up and you start to talk about the scene and leading people into the scene. And then people wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And then the experience inside of goggle only totally mirror what you've talked about. And blow people away with how the technology can bring that world in front of you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had a success in terms of being more descriptive, specific about what's inside, instead of saying it will make you an empathic person, whatever. I think that's just labeling. Yeah.
So instead of just using this kind of simplified term of it creates empathy, you've found it works better to like kind of create a sort of rich allow them to use their imagination by describing that scene, and they can kind of picture and generate that sort of experience and get a much better idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me, because if you think about TV, let's say, a television. So if someone was just trying to describe a blanket statement of what television can do for us, well, there's so many different things, and it depends on the program, and it depends on who you are and what you enjoy. And it depends on how that, I mean, with TV, technology advanced in a lot of its own ways, still essentially bringing some of the same, the flat screen capabilities, but like adding color and getting better with resolution and all of these things. But ultimately, if you were just to say like, oh, well, it provides entertainment and it provides a way for you to watch a movie or watch the news, I mean, that's not describing the real value that it brings us.
That's not actually different.
Right, because we're not like, how often do we really just talk about like the television we have, other than like once in a while we upgrade, and we start talking about it then. But I love that, what you said, Jude, because it's like, well, we don't really talk about the television. We talk about the latest TV show we watched or the movie, and we describe it that way. And that's what draws people to it.
Exactly.
So I had a thought about VR being this sort of like, if television, we, especially for like, I guess in the earlier days when it started to take off, and you basically all kids were watching TV or on Saturday morning cartoons and everything, and all of the debate around like, it's rotting your brain and it limits people's development of imagination. Why, like, are we still
going to have to struggle with those kinds of things with VR, in that if you can describe someone to something in the right way, you can actually get them to evoke all this rich visual and experience in their mind. And often people talk about VR as if it's this sort of solution to just create empathy and like make people feel things. But at the same time, you can do that through exactly what you're just talking about, by actually getting someone to be able to envision and understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel so VR is another type of medium, right? And then storytellers, it's different.
Yeah.
So you have story use different medium to engage people.
Through many different
And
mediums.
you are a good storyteller, period, no matter what medium you use.
Yeah.
But I do think VR is the most immersive medium for storytellers. That also goes back to, do I love game? I love game. I love game with the stories. I love game. I love the gamification elements of any games. I think there are interesting VR experiences, VR games that help people to train their skills or ask more questions, have curiosity around subject matter inside of the game. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But there are certain games just pure for repetitive motion. I just don't get it. So those are the games, particularly the violent games. I think that's that will make people think more the negative aspect of VR, which will hurt the industry at the end.
Right. So you had this experience at CIFX.
Yes.
And from that, so that was just like a random weekend for you,
It was
right?
just a random weekend looking for things to do.
Right. So what is your thought process after that? Because what was the time, like the duration between that experience, like the path from there to where you started to actually work and decide to work in VR?
So when I thought about Immersive Square, that was before I decided to start with a immersive experience, quote unquote VR. When I think about immersion, I actually back then, before I was exposed to VR, I was more thinking about cultural immersion, very unique experiences that's more intimate and maybe offsite. And I wanted to create a hub for that kind of experiences. And I even started designing. It was nothing related to VR. And then I was starting to look at how does it different from, how's it different from any travel experience out there, right? And how does it tie to the future, and how does it tie back to my digital and technology background? So I was just stop and go with that idea while I was still working in Staples, and until I went to the CIFX, and of course I need to spend time to do research in VR.
Yeah.
And I went to Meetup and things like that. And I decided to start with something that is completely immersion.
Right.
I feel looking back at that was a great decision, because it is truly a great combination of storytelling, technology, and art. It's a perfect intersection of what I'm interested in and what I'm good at.
Yeah.
So the company that you started is Immersive Square, and that still exists today. That's what you're still doing
exists.
today.
Yes.
Huzzah!
Yeah. Don't die.
Yeah.
Still around.
So,
So
yeah.
you got started with that shortly after, or I guess shortly after CIFX?
Oh, probably a year after that.
Okay,
Because
gotcha.
I marinate with that idea for a while. I pivoted before I started, right? From a travel-ish type of experience app into immersive experience, which is VR.
And when you say immersive experience, the goal, what is the intended goal of the experience for the people using it?
So that goes back to then after I decided to get into the VR. Back then we called it VR. Now we call it XR. There were two ways of getting into a new industry, right? there's an into it, there's around it, right? So into it is I was learning Unity and being more of an experienced production person, and then just build experience. I have stories in my head I wanted to build, but I after doing user research back then, a lot of people were feeling not ready to buy a headset.
Yeah.
So
pretty early.
and then I feel, okay, for this industry, I want this industry to be successful. But for this industry, there's some work to be done to bring awareness to the general public.
Yeah.
So I think it's needed and it's value added. So I decided Immersive Square will be bringing people to a physical space
Okay.
and bring VR experience to them.
Right.
So no matter what kind of experience, right? It could be now fast forward 2 years, the physical, let's say physical experience or location based. I try not to use the word entertainment. I try to replace the E with experience.
Yep.
Location based experience. There's so many different flavors of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what Immersive Square is. So Immersive Square is basically just bring people to a physical place to interact with immersive technology and experience.
Okay.
Right.
I think it would be beneficial to try to kind of give an explanation of at least how you've defined the difference between, like, what is the key difference between entertainment versus experience? What makes something entertainment versus an experience?
That's a good point. So my own definition of it, without Googling or anything, right? So I think entertainment is very much a shallow level of experience. It's more for stimulation. It's more for consumption.
Okay.
And experience is...
Or passive consumption.
It's more passive consumption.
Yeah.
Experience is more a very in-depth. And it could be a very much an exchange of thoughts and experiences. And it is very much living it rather than consuming it.
Yeah.
That's how I define from my perspective.
Okay. So I'm getting elements of like interaction often, where like there's some sort of interaction with other people involved sometimes, or
Well, you could have interaction in an entertainment thing.
That's I kind of wanted to play devil's advocate on that because
I think
video games in particular
right,
are interactive.
Yeah. So I think it's more of the depth of connection.
I was just thinking that. I was like,
it's the connection versus the interaction.
Yeah.
So it's like selfie versus really, really love the nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? You go to Mount Rainier, you take selfie in front of Mount Rainier, that's entertainment for you.
Yeah, yeah.
But you go there and you really, really enjoy and smell the just listen to the sound and smell the flavor of the forest. That's experience.
Yeah, maybe you sit down on a cliff and just kind of absorb your presence in that space.
Exactly.
Rather than just looking at it and seeing the beauty and then leaving.
Yeah. It takes time to experience.
Which the lines definitely get blurry because there's like things that could merge into that sort of entertainment category, but also have a lot more depth and become more of an experience rather than just a passive absorption. But
I think it's a natural progression of entertainment.
Yeah.
So if you look at
as it increases in depth.
Yeah, it's
substance.
So experience. So if you look at the growth of our experience as a humankind, right? We'll solve our hunger issue, survivalship, and we want to be productive, so we have fast food.
Yeah.
And now we move into organic food. We really enjoy every single meal, from farm to table. It's very similar in entertainment. The more we have access to a certain subject matter, the more we want it to be better. And that is when the lines start to blur.
Yeah.
So that's why I really think experience is the blue ocean for us.
The
rather
blue
than
ocean.
entertainment. Blue ocean means it has no boundary, it has no limit.
Oh,
Right?
gotcha. I've never heard that expression before. The blue
There's a book
ocean.
called The Blue Ocean.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's not red ocean. Red ocean is people who are working in a limited field and resulting pricing war and competition.
a finite space.
It's a finite
possibility.
space.
Yeah.
And then blue ocean is user imagination defying new spaces.
Yeah.
And then sky is the limit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me with the XR industry, obviously, because I mean, it's just like anything else. You start this new industry, everyone's trying to just take over the same things that already exist and reapply it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not quite working for them. So they're like, well, this is, this industry is a piece of shit, and like, it's all going down the tubes, but it's like they're not thinking in the blue ocean.
Yeah, you're thinking in the red ocean of all of the entertainment that existed before.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm a really big fan of models.
Okay. What model? 3D model or financial model?
Conceptual models.
Conceptual model. Okay.
Yeah, for anything.
He's laughing because I'll make fun of him for that.
Okay.
Well, in trying to get a grasp on a set of concepts, I always like to try to create some sort of structure for the key things or key factors. So in this case, I'm thinking of a spectrum basically where pure entertainment, meaning pure just stimulus, it's just exciting to you in some sort of way, even down to just I'm playing Candy Crush on my phone and it's keeping me engaged because it's stimulating my mind. Maybe not in the most deep manner. And then on the other end of that spectrum, which continues further than we know at this point, you have the sort of growing depth and breadth of what experience can be beyond just stimulating, but sort of growing in its richness, and you add all these different layers and levels and just different colors to that whole space of possibility. And
Yeah, I
upper
can.
Bounds are unknown.
Yeah, I can see that. Except I would not put a spectrum which is linear.
Okay.
I would rather put it in a circular because whether you choose one type of entertainment or experience to rewind or relax is your need. You are engaged. You cannot force people to say you really should do a therapeutic experience if you really like to do Sudoku, right? Different people will have different ways of unwinding. So I would say circular. Sometimes my radar scan will hit better with just a repetitive experience. Sometimes I need a full immersive mindfulness. Sometimes I would like to have motion and acting and very active and very sporty experience. So I think it gives people a choice and the tools to make the right choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's no implication that the more pure sort of mindless, but not in a bad way, sort of entertainment is a necessary thing.
Right.
Just being able to sometimes sit down and just stare at a fire for a while and kind of zone out, that's necessary.
Right. People
Just
can
be
have
fascinated
choice.
by the flames. It's just really pretty colors in front of your face. And that can draw you after a really long week doing all kinds of things.
Yeah.
When you just need to wind down. Or you want to dive into some sort of really complicated story or book or experience in VR
Exactly.
on the other end.
Yeah.
What made you, Jude, decide to work in right now with Immersive Square? It's an app and a website where you can go and find events that are happening and go to a location where you might pay a certain amount of money or it might be free. And you go there and you can experience XR. And other people are coming to you having their what they're putting on your app or website to market it, right? Okay. So you're so in love with experience, whether that's in real life or depth of experience in real life. I mean, like you've said, that's what you like. You seem to travel a lot. You love hiking, all of that. That's what motivated you to get into VR. And so But what you ended up working on is providing it, making it accessible for other people. What made you decide to go that route versus going gung-ho into some sort of like, I want to produce experiences, which I know you also do that.
Yeah.
But obviously your baby is Immersive Square.
Yeah, I
Bringing them
think
together.
Yeah, I think bringing people together is really my passion. Even we can talk about later about the lantern experience. Is still an app VR experience about connecting people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I think so. Going back to what was the reason to start Immersive Square, being a place where people can find and experience VR. It was it was part of it was a business decision, right? Because the headset ownership is not at the tipping point where the produced content can be easily distributed to everyone.
Yeah.
And someone in the industry will need to do that type of work to make it easier for a general public to
Open up the accessibility.
just
too.
really open up the accessibility, because it takes a lot more steps for a general public, general user to be aware of VR, think about, I can buy a headset, doing research which headset to buy, look for content, and then pay for it,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Versus one stop. Here, click the app, and then 2 days later, you can go participate in a VR experience.
Right.
So it's all about the friction of adopting a certain technology and a certain media, a certain
Like
experience.
barrier to entry.
Exactly.
Of utilizing it.
Yeah, in the future, I would say it could be Immersive Square could be completely virtual if the headset ownership is there,
Yeah.
or
It's a broad.
or
platform
it's
standpoint.
physical and digital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. But from a product standpoint, you have a vision that the vision is to bring people who are far apart together and make people's connection deeper when they're together.
Yeah.
Right? So this doesn't necessarily mean people will have headset at home, be on a couch and talk in a virtual space. It doesn't, it's physical, and the digital line will ultimately blur. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
But the connection is really, is never going to go away.
That is a consistent dynamic and need that will
Yeah.
Yeah.
will continue to be a part of life.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense from both your personality and, like you said, in terms of where we are in the industry
Yeah.
and its own life cycle.
Right.
What made you so in love with experiences and connection? Have you always had that?
It's part of probably I came from a culture, I think Chinese culture is very family driven. Our food is served on a round table. And it's a family style.
Yeah.
You are served, everything is in one big plate.
Yeah.
And it's very different from the Western food where you get your own portion and your own plate, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
growing up in that is I feel it's a very healthy way to live. And I also feel there is definitely an increasing trend for teenagers to just stuck on their cell phone and without looking looking up. I saw so many people in the restaurant when the couple are eating on the same table, but instead of talking to each other and have eye contact, they just check their phone.
Yeah.
So I feel it is correlated with the depression. I think a connection is ultimately deny it or not, be antisocial or not, connection is what we crave
Yeah.
Yeah.
as a species.
I mean, that's why people are looking at their phone all the time, because they're waiting for the next ping or text message.
Don't know. I don't have a theory for that, but I only know connection makes people happier.
Just coming from this conversation, I'm starting to feel like, okay, well, we've had this problem that has been developing with phones over time, where we have this essentially very small and narrow conduit through which to communicate.
Right.
And that's become the way that everybody communicates with one another now. But if we fast forward and we can actually improve upon that and basically open it back up to overlay it on reality and we don't have to talk through this device all the time,
Yeah.
then we can get back to a healthier way of interacting with everything around us.
I agree. I think if we take ourselves out of the timeline, and I would say flat screen, touch screen is a very work in progress piece of product in human race.
Yeah.
And if you really take yourself out of timeline, this was just like a dot in
Right.
history.
The speck on that.
And the next step is going to be a more immersive version. Connection, it can be physical and digital. The key thing is to provide people the choice.
Yeah.
But people don't have choice now.
Yeah,
They
it's
have
the
to-
only way.
That's the
right now.
only way, exactly. And I'm looking forward for immersive technology to be there, and it's so easily accessible, and it become a natural choice. People can still choose to be here
Right.
physically, go to a bar to watch a sport,
Yeah.
but can also be at home. If I am in China, I want to watch football,
Right.
and I can actually finally do that with my
Right.
friends, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny because Jay and I just keep finding this theme of connection, and a lot of the conversations we're having, which
Yeah.
was totally unexpected. You sit down and have a lot of conversations with people about the XR industry. You would think that we'd be talking about
It's about
other
immersion
things.
and,
Yeah, I
like,
don't know. I
trend.
mean, just obviously everyone, especially people outside of the industry, talk about how it's isolating.
Yeah.
But everyone we talk to, I mean, it's all about connection. It's really fascinating how many people involved understand that the power that it brings to that, and how instead of isolating us more and more, which I can understand why it appears that way to people, but the people who are really in it, immersed in it,
They can see where they can see where it's going.
right?
Like where
They
we're headed.
understand that it's actually leapfrogging the phones in a lot of ways and bringing us back to connection
Yeah.
in a certain way.
I always believe in the full circle of life. We came from a species where we surrounded a fire pit,
Yeah.
and we will go back that. But it's going to be a blurred line between digital and physical.
That's so funny that since the first episode we've
Yeah.
been doing this like fireside chat.
Yeah.
Either a fireplace like a Yule log, or it's like a campfire in the mountains or something
Yep.
in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah, on a screen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
wish-
on a screen.
Right. We wish we could actually sit outside by a fire, but unfortunately,
Noise.
the sound.
Yeah, I would
would
love to have.
suffer.
I'd love to have ambiance of like crickets or something.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
know.
can totally do that.
We could probably throw that in, but we have the ambiance of so many planes. I don't know what
Yeah,
what do you
cars
need,
and
Jay?
Construction? You don't like that?
I know.
As an alternative.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
City.
Yeah, I almost, the isolation misconception, I guess, about VR. I feel like half of that is driven just by the fact that you always see, even in ads by Oculus and like Vive and all the different companies that are working in the space, and all of the different news articles and publications, it's almost always some sort of picture of somebody wearing a headset and then a bunch of people around them completely disconnected doing something else. And the visual message that communicates is this person's in their own world. They're
Right.
completely separated from anyone else. And it doesn't get to that core.
Yeah. I almost, so I am a photographer as well. I almost wanted to do a series of photograph called The Humans of VR,
Ooh.
but exactly to put the VR headset on the sides. It should really be about a human. It's not about the headset.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
love
All the
Tools.
if you Google all the images, it's always someone with the big headset. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you would have to, like, maybe you could emphasize what they're actually seeing, or like the interaction that they're having. And the headset is somewhere in there, but it's more of a subtle sort of note in the overall composition.
Yeah.
You're showing the experience that they're having.
Yeah, the Ready Player One was trying to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
Put on the headset. I think that would be a good example of showing the glasses are going to bring you that different experience.
Yeah, they open it back up
Right.
from the phone.
Yeah.
So you came from this product management background and then into this new space where the whole industry is undefined. It's not just the company's problem. It's literally just a new area of technology and a new domain that's kind of bleeding into everything else. How have you been, like, how have those skills, that past experience in product development and like product management, how has that been benefiting you moving forward into your own endeavors, into putting together your own company? Basically, like that sort of journey from a PM to a founder.
Well, I'll just add to that because I love how we're always on the same page, because that's actually exactly what I was going to ask too. It was just like, what the heck was that like? Because I understand the background that you've had in a lot of ways, but then like to become your own, like a founder of a company and start running your own company is already a really big jump from any job, but
in established industries.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you were doing it in an immersive industry. In an emerging industry, which has been known to have a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
And so I'm very curious about that journey as well, like what it was like to just start Immersive Square and how you transitioned into it.
So to answer your question, right? So in the first place, I didn't even know how unestablished this industry was. And
how unestablished.
So it's like, in
like,
terms
"That's
of how fragmented, undefined, right?
Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was a good thing.
Know.
I think that there's a saying about, you don't have fear if you don't know enough.
Yeah.
And I totally benefited from it.
Yeah, you wouldn't have done it if you'd known how hard it was going to be.
I wouldn't, well, not sure, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I think the product side of thing really helped me to be, first is user-centric.
Yeah.
It's just really understand user base. And the second is have an approach of just the proof proof-of-concept and the continuous, be comfortable with pivoting.
Yeah, quick prototypes, like
Quick
validate
prototype,
your
so that is a kind of PM is a mini CEOs of your own kind of product feature.
Yeah.
So that training was pretty much just landed very well to entrepreneurship, and being not fully aware of how undefined this industry was great for my personality, because I sort of love the idea of doing a lot of research and connected with the right people in the industry, and then drive towards clarity. I love that kind of a driving towards clarity feeling. The journey excites me.
Yeah.
I think the clarity is still not there, I can tell you.
Yeah.
But I just love the fact that I am also feeling comfortable as an individual of changes. And
in a changing environment.
Just constantly change.
Yeah.
And be comfortable that it's going to be okay.
I will figure it out.
We will figure it out. Yeah, I think that was both a career, professional, and individual growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have had that mentality without your consulting background?
Didn't. I wouldn't know.
Right.
Yeah. I wish I had more experience in startups. I didn't. Consulting, and then I did a big corporate.
Right.
But consulting did help now at this moment.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to figure out the be resourceful, and being able to think about where I want Immersive Square to be and what needs to happen.
Yeah.
For the business to be more mature.
Yeah.
And that part is very, very helpful.
So you've have developed a solid understanding of like how to lay out milestones and how to put together your roadmap and like know why and where you're going.
Yeah.
Where you should be going depending on how things are.
Yeah. The vision has not changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the building blocks. The building blocks in sequence might have changed, and how far each building blocks start to play out also changed, because the adoption and everything. There's a lot of things outside of control.
Yeah.
And but the key thing is to be flexible and be able to deal with situation, be resourceful to solve problem.
Right.
Yeah.
What were some of your biggest challenges in the beginning, in the beginning of the transition?
Some of the challenges were, interestingly, it came from a more mature development shop. So I had this development methodology that was a bit too big for a startup, which is just myself.
Limited resources compared to a large company.
I think I would be more small flavor of proof of concept rather than I just went directly into a platform, right?
Like,
it couldn't be
the
just
whole
a
thing.
web page, right?
Yeah.
But it's
Too
okay.
ambitious up front, but
It's just I came from a bigger product team, so when
Yeah.
I think about features, always that size
Yeah.
versus that size. So yeah, I mean, it's just if I look back, I would be a little bit more nimble in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
a little more agile.
more agile. Yeah.
To expand further on just those initial challenges, like you had the expertise that you developed as a PM, as a product manager, but what specific things really challenged you early on that you hadn't learned as a PM in your previous experience? Not necessarily just from being used to different scope, but the things that you had to then pick up going through the process of putting together your own business.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think
And in an emerging market.
the complexity of what goes into immersive technology itself. So I came from mobile and web background. Simple, right? Either MAMP stack or Node.js. It's just it's more mature. And
It's more established.
It's
at this
more
point,
established, and the resource framework is a lot more accessible. The problem solving is their templates of solving problem for mobile and web apps.
There's
right?
There's a lot more tools already built that are established. Best practices are already there. People have played around and experimented, and there's a pretty good framework for how you do web or mobile apps at this point.
No, to immersive technologies, every single thing needs to Google till 10th page, and then you find something that is the answer I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So I think I didn't regret to spend all those time because I internalized the learning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I came from a product background, but I learned how to build computers because I didn't know when I got into it, you have to have 1080 as a graphic card. So immersive technology has multiple layers, right, of technology in it. You have Unity, which is the development tool.
Mm-hmm.
You have the hardware, and you need to understand the computer, and you need to understand headset.
Yeah.
And you also need to understand all the content. Mm-hmm. Every single thing requires a lot of research.
Yeah.
It's not like people, I'm pretty well connected with the VR community, which I benefited a lot, but it's just sheer volume of information and how scattered they are. Takes a long time to consolidate and then come up with a pattern so that I can actually take it from there and think about what I can do with those information. Yeah. So that's the hardest part. It's still very hard, but at least now I know the keywords I need to put into the search box to find the relevant information.
You've learned the vocab.
Lingo. Yeah, exactly.
The particular vocabulary to find better answers. But
Right.
So how are things going? You are now 2, almost 3 years in before you start, or did you just celebrate 2 years? Was it 2 years?
Yeah, I think August was the second year. August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the one thing I do believe that proved out was the location and the physical space model it works.
Okay.
And it helps. It helps with the adoption of the industry as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still really trying to figure out the revenue model for it. I don't think anybody in the industry is able to do that other than arcades, because they have a physical location, fixed, probably lease cost, and staffing model, and content model. Right. And they do have, as long as that they have enough foot traffic, it will work. It's a math, right? So for any business, in order to be a repeatable business model, you need to prove out the pricing and the structure and the cost to serve. I feel that is not there, and it's not there for any of the kind of installation type of location-based experience business.
Okay.
It's very pop-up is a very labor-intensive experience, and it's also very volunteer-based,
Right.
which is also another challenge for a for-profit business.
Yeah.
I don't know what is the best way to. I pay all my staff when there's an event that Immersive Square's own event.
Yeah.
I think I'm still continue to learn. What I want to do is curate less events. I want to be the supporter of people who want to do events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to kind of step back for a second and like further clarify what a location-based experience is in VR or XR. I think that would be useful to kind of define that.
Right, in case, well, sorry, my chair is like, I'm trying to just cross my legs and not being very dainty about it.
They're very flexible.
Because just as context, we want to make sure that we're not over-explaining things, but that also, like, somebody could keep up that's really interested in the industry that doesn't live in Seattle and already have all the lingo down, who can, like, start to develop the language, like you were saying. So my understanding of location-based entertainment, a theme park experience is kind of like location-based entertainment, right?
I would agree, yeah.
You go there and you're getting entertained in various ways,
up.
and things are set up for you,
Yeah.
right? And so then...
So similar to an arcade almost, but...
Well, I guess that's an interesting question, is what's the difference between that and an arcade? Because then if you take a step down from theme parks, or even within theme parks, they're starting to develop VR experiences, which are things like, let's say they'll have an obstacle course set up, and you might have a VR headset on, and you are seeing things and experiencing something that's set up for you. And so you go through a door, there's an actual door there. You walk on something gross, let's say, and they may reflect something like that. I mean, think of like a haunted house, but with a VR headset on, where all the content is in the headset, and just the like construction around you is set up for you.
So it's almost like a 4D movie experience,
exactly,
but in VR, where they
you're
set
actually
up an interactive environment.
Yeah, and that's actually like the full experience of VR, because you're actually running around and or walking or going through doors, and you're feeling exactly like you said, like the 4D experiences, except in the movies they're terrible.
Yeah.
Where they just like blow weird air on you and
those
like tickle the bottom of your
water
feet.
on you. Yeah, like this is like way better than
Somebody
that.
sneezed in your face. Basically.
Right. But then the next question is like, okay, below that, if that's like the extreme of a location-based entertainment experience, where do arcades fall? And then some of the things that you were talking about, Jude.
Yeah. So the key element is relatively, even just minimal interaction with a physical environment space that is set up for the user.
Yes. So you have a full entertainment, premium experience. You need to wear a body armor.
Oh, so there's haptic.
Right, those kind of stuff.
Backpack,
That's not what Immersive Square is set to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I believe in accessibility.
Yeah.
And I think I believe fast forward, right? It's all about what is going to happen ahead of us. I do believe that, and I am passionate about bringing tools and resources into storytellers' hand, and they can set up their own story in a more easy way and a more immersive way in a local venue, right?
Yeah.
Do we really need a specific entertainment center for this kind of stuff? Maybe, but it does not really solve a lot of accessibility issue, because it's really a pain in the neck to drive 18 miles up and down for a 30-minute experience, right?
It's not even just accessibility from like a handicap's perspective. It's like literally location. Like
it's
most
entertainment.
people can't go to that and experience it very often.
Yeah, but they do great things for VR. They really bring the horizon to the next level. Let's say I do think that
You're
it's
talking about the
void.
extreme, things like the void.
I
yeah.
have all the
okay.
respect for people who not only came up with this idea but executed so well on it, right? But it's not for it's like Disney. What is the percentage of people actually went to Disneyland?
Right. You
Like your
you literally
audience
have to fly to like Florida or something. It's in very unique locations, and then you have to be aware that it's even there, and then you have to wait in line and pay a bunch of money to experience
Exactly.
it.
So is that even are they able to make that a sustainable endeavor or business? How are they doing that?
I have no idea.
I wouldn't be able to. I think that they received a lot of funding really means they're doing very well.
Okay.
And
so there's kind of like long-term investment.
Well, I think like arcades, they will be fine because they already have an established venue. They already have an audience, right? That's there and willing to pay for entertainment.
Yeah.
And then they get this new experience that
Edge
they
of
are
the-
hearing about, right? That they're also using big brand names and partnering with like, IXLM or like Star Wars and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think certain things like that are probably doing just fine because of that, but I guess that remains to be seen over the long term.
Yeah. I guess my assumption would be that they are basically targeting a very niche audience of like early adopters and enthusiasts, and that's really the whole thing for them.
Well,
right
no,
now.
I think they're getting park goers.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah,
people
like
that
they're actually probably the almost. I'm talking out of my ass right now, but I'm like, I feel like they might be the only ones truly accessing the general public because they're like, well, actually. In masses, I mean, like rather than so, like in your case, Jude, you have to have someone who's at least interested enough to look up a nearby pop-up or do something like you did on your first
curious.
experience. Like there's some sort of curiosity or a friend who is bringing somebody along, right?
Yeah.
So the way to engage, it's all about outreach, though, right?
Yeah.
So I would say the consumer model. So if we were talking about access to general public, it's a consumer model, right? And it is really about bringing that product to where consumers are.
Yeah.
Right. So we're not doing enough in the industry to do that.
Well, I feel like that's one of the biggest challenges with this industry and any emerging industry is that people don't even know it exists yet.
Not yet. But
so how do you reach them?
That's the blue ocean. I think that's the blue ocean. Think about where consumers go. List the 10 places, 10 things consumers spend time in their day. That's your blue ocean.
Yeah.
The potential, So going back to your description of the blue ocean, that's the area of possibility of how you can engage with people.
Right.
Things that they're already doing.
Things they're already doing,
We're not taking advantage of yet. We're not making use of those interactions.
Right. I think that the one thing that won't change, even though we can build buildings that's 100 floors high or whatsoever, the one thing won't change is we only have 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
As human beings. And you're not going to add 24 hours on top of that for people to do new things. You just have to think about what you're already doing and transform and add value to how they do it. That is the blue ocean I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think when we were having a previous conversation that started to touch on a similar theme here is that there are certain activities like people connecting or falling in love or needing to go grocery or find ways to get food or experience and eat, or exercising. They're consistent themes that continue to exist regardless of where technology's at, and so like those are some of those little areas of the blue ocean that we're talking about.
Yes, those are areas, but think even outside of the box are what are the things that certain general public are not able to do those things because they are not accessible.
Yeah.
For seniors that they can't travel, right? For people with handicap, with disability, they cannot do certain things. And those are all underserved market. Those are also very much a blue ocean. Because no one's serving it, right?
Yeah.
And the VR is great because they can fill those void. You don't actually need to have a physical ability to do it by experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and on top of that, the general value added experience of a typical consumer, those are blue ocean as well. Which brings up another topic of why VR. Like you can't stick VR on everything.
Yeah. You can't just be like, here, put this
right.
headset on and like, go enjoy yourself.
That's the beauty of being in the industry. I think the community is very open about sharing and then have really, really innovative ideas and post it on Facebook group or post it on the Slack channel. And then the rest of us will learn, that works or not. So
yeah, just sharing insights right now.
Sharing your pivot,
like
right? Sharing your proof of concept.
You can do.
Yeah.
It's like we learned all of this from this experience of trying to build this thing or get this thing out to market, and here's all of the lessons that we learned as a result.
Right.
Through that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, what lessons learned are you willing to share? So you have with Immersive Square, it is like pop-ups, right? That's what you're saying. So meaning, and going back to something you had stated earlier, you, meaning Immersive Square, also put on pop-ups, and then you also support pop-ups that other people are doing. So you partner with people, and your goal is to get to more support and partnering that way rather than running your own. But obviously it sounds like you had to at least start with running some of your own to show
Thank you for understanding that.
To create value first.
That was
right.
It is.
That network effect started. Right.
Yeah, it's that, and also yes, when I started the listing immersive experience on Immersive Square, and I was trying to find immersive experience around me, couldn't find any, right?
Yeah.
So I just throw up a bunch of pop-ups. And
You
I'll do my own.
I applied.
You applied to your own.
I'll be my own customer
and then,
first.
So that's one thing I actually shared a lot of learning in terms of how to support a community center.
Yeah.
And whether pop-up in a restaurant will work or not, and what kind of outdoor tips and tricks that you would run into when you are in festival. So I think a part of the walk made me a better person to build those features and hopefully can share with other event planners.
Like going through what you want people to do on your platform.
Exactly. The goal is to have event planner find it's so easy to put together an immersive event. And they already have their audience, and that the problem should not be solved by creating new audience for VR. The problem should be make it VR so awesome so that you can engage with your existing audience better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We don't need new people. We just need to appeal to the people that already
appreciate
exist.
new people.
Yeah. But I mean, like, we need to figure out how to relate these new experiences and new technologies to the population that's already there,
right?
But doesn't know yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, like, for example, how do you go about enabling more people in maybe the elderly community to be able to appreciate or benefit from these technologies, particularly when they're not nearly as connected often to a lot of the upstart world of technology over the past few decades?
So there are people doing great things in this space. In Seattle, there is a company, Home Away. I forgot the actual name.
Home Away?
Home Away?
I don't know.
Well, so she ran a not-for-profit that bring VR to senior homes.
I don't know them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I volunteered last week, and I learned so much. Like, wow, there's so many things to consider when you are bringing a VR experience for senior, right? But loved it. They loved it. Yeah, it's just that underserved communities are so appreciative of something that you bring to that community. It's inspiring.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And same as when I bring a pop-up to community centers and kids after school and they didn't have a place to go. and they came to community center and they played some VR, Tilt Brush, and I told one girl's parent that your daughter is really talented in art. Right? Those kind of stuff are value added, right? So I think those are the things ultimately will add value through VR and the pop-up events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. Have you had any crazy experiences, outside of that? I mean, that one is a great example, but I guess like what other crazy experiences have you had since you started Immersive Square bringing VR to communities?
And perhaps like examples of just impact.
There was one thing, not necessarily. Okay, so once it's more of a blueprint that I found very successful in engaging with the audience is think about a way that you can also bring what's inside of virtual reality into the physical world, so that the people who didn't experience it also understand what it is about.
They're engaged somehow.
Right.
They're engaged. They're continuously engaged.
Yeah.
So the re-engagement is actually important to close the loop, and that will define the success of this industry as well. Is constant re-engagement.
Yeah.
People want to come back. So the one I did with the Seattle Parks and Recreation group, I did a little with the transportation group. So they actually had I had a Tilt Brush and King Spray set up as a 2 art station for people to come, and I also set up a self print little print station, and I exported what they painted inside of VR. And directly print out on the printer. And we hung those pictures on the string
Wow.
inside of the booth.
So the people not in that VR experience or in Tilt Brush were
They
getting
are
to
like,
experience the
wow,
creations.
you can
directly.
actually paint it, and you can't see it like that. And the people also want to jump in as a
they're
result.
like, I want
Right.
to do that.
Yeah, so that's
Like
kind
a
of
physical reward.
the physical reward,
Yeah.
and it's important, right? Because we humans cognition with an abstract form of medium requires some hand holding,
Yeah.
and sometimes the hand holding could be as simple as something is an output
Right.
of
Literally
virtual
being held in the
reality.
hand.
Right. I'm not a big fan of you have to print out things or because I'm an environmentalist.
Yeah.
But in order to get there, there's a baby step we need to do is to show people that this is actually what VR is about.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So that's a good way for re-engagement.
yeah. I guess while it's not possible yet for everyone to be able to be in some sort of headset or just have that interface, creating or integrating that experience into the physical world in very tactile ways like that, just enables people to see the possibility a lot easier. That's
Exactly.
really cool.
VR, you just have to try it to feel the beauty. But to see how people actually create something and output something tangible is very powerful too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also, in addition to doing Immersive Square, you have participated in your own creations, speaking of creations. And one of those is the Lantern Experience. What's the official name of it?
Lantern Ensemble.
Lantern Ensemble.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which I had the privilege of doing because I went to visit Jude at WeWork, and so I got to experience it. And
Is that where you all met? Or?
no,
We met before.
We
Oh,
had
okay.
met
Yeah.
before. We were just catching up.
Gotcha.
And so I got to experience that, which to briefly go, is it okay if I describe it?
Oh yeah, please
Okay,
do.
great.
Yeah.
So what it is you are in this kind of like nice dark experience, I would say, and you have a paper lantern, and which is that a Chinese thing?
It's Asian. I think Chinese, Japan.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Probably. Yeah.
So you have a paper
Thailand.
lantern,
Mhm.
and you also have a calligraphy pen, and so you can decorate your own paper lantern with whatever art you want to, which for me was not good. But the cool part about it is it makes it look better than it actually is, you know, because it's like very smooth calligraphy, you know. So thank God
It
for
rounds out
people
your
like
lines.
me. Yeah, it all rounds out all the lines and all that. And then once you're done decorating the paper lantern, you then get to put it in this amazing water. So you imagine it's kind of like, you know, what I imagine. This is going to be a weird analogy, but I'm like, it's like this very comfortable experience. Like, you know, I've never been into a floating room that they say represents being like the womb, but that's kind of how I felt. It's like a very comfortable, dark experience. And then you're looking out at the water, and then you get to send your paper lantern out into the water. You place it and it joins all of the other paper lanterns that people do.
Real ones that other people have
Yeah,
made.
they're are they still the real ones?
Still real ones.
Yeah.
Persistent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's persistent. That's the word that I was looking
That
for.
reminds me of that experience where thoughts go, where you have the persistent sort of thought bubbles of all these other people.
It's that same concept, and for anyone listening who doesn't know where thoughts go, is it was the same concept in terms of you have thoughts that you record, and then you place them into a space, and then you can also review and hear other people's thoughts that have been in that space. And so similarly, you can see everyone else's paper lanterns, going back to connection.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So I loved that experience.
Thank you.
That honestly does remind me of what I was describing earlier, the take flight experience that got me into VR in the first place, because it doesn't take much to make a powerful experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that we're all into like the big graphics, and this whole industry, especially in Seattle, is like really big gaming and all of this.
Yeah.
It's like making it complicated. And I've found that a lot of the experiences I've had that were powerful and memorable were simple. And I mean simple not in the sense that they were simple to build, to be very clear.
The execution is not
I mean
easy.
simple in concept, you know, and that but when you are experiencing it, there are a lot of complex feelings going on with what you're doing.
The impact is more profound, like the effect it has.
Right. But when I just describe it to you, I mean, it's kind of a short description,
Yeah, it's
you
like
know.
a pool of water that goes off into the distance and a bunch of lanterns floating there.
But don't you want to experience that?
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it, Jude. But so how did I do an okay job of explaining it?
Yeah, you did better than I do.
I just get excited. So was that from a hackathon?
That was a result of a hackathon.
Yeah, but you guys kept working on it, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just from.
Refined it
the,
afterwards.
Oh yeah. We fine-tuned after that.
Yeah.
yeah.
You didn't do the whole thing in a week or a weekend?
A weekend kind of constructed the experience.
Yeah, the
and then a lot
prototype.
of calligraphy, fine-tuning, and lighting.
Yeah.
Is after hackathon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The extra polish.
Yeah.
And so, how do you feel about now that you've done that and you have that experience out there? Do you like creating in VR? Do you want to do more of it?
Definitely. I like pretty much the same line of simple narrative, but really tap deep into emotion.
Yeah.
I feel it's just my own, how I resonate with the experience was when an experience does not push emotion upon you, but take your emotion out of it.
It allows you to.
It allows you
your
to
own.
just be there. I think, yes, I'm not, my strength is not narrative. So I'm not going to get into a story with a storyline and with characters.
Entire arc.
The entire arc. It wouldn't be my. I'm not equipped to do that, but I will continue to think about things just like that. Yeah,
Or at least the effect that kind of
right.
experience has on people.
Yeah, and I love user generated content.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like Lantern is a user generated content,
Right.
and it's persistent.
Yeah.
So that's this will be along the same line.
Right. Having people come together to create something and connect through that experience.
Right.
Are you working on anything else now?
There was a one that we came out of last hackathon, which is about connection.
Okay.
We did a bubble around you. It's the voice input. I love connecting the live input, like humans' organic input, and use that to create and manipulate experience inside of VR. And in that particular hackathon, the live input is mic.
Yeah.
Okay. Recording your some voice or just noise.
Live input.
Yeah.
So as the user use mic to do things, they take the input, and then the scene will change.
Like voicing actual commands.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's specific like spoken commands for it, or is it the?
We were trying to do
more than-
spoken. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I wrote a piece, some learning postmortem about it. So voice, long story short, there are a lot more needs to be done for voice input because there are not a lot of permutation in voice input that can give you a variety of experience because our pitch is so hard to capture.
Yeah.
I can't say the one word in 10,000 different ways just coming out of my own voice cord.
The variation
is a variation, so it's very hard to
problematic.
use voice. We used the volume, use the input volume to increase the light bubble around you.
Got you.
And the premise is the narrative is you can speak up, and your world will light up around you.
So almost like the amount of energy that you input into the mic, essentially, you are brightening up.
You are brightening up.
That's okay. That's really cool.
Yeah. But anyways, those are all small projects just to get myself, keep myself learning about Unity.
Yeah.
Right.
Or being that deep generalist.
Deep. I think there's a little artist in me, and I do like to get my hands dirty on certain things.
There obviously is. I mean, it's funny
yeah.
to me that your background is like economics and IT and analysts and audit and all this stuff because like I feel like I look at you and see all this other stuff like your personality, the way you dress, like the way you have discussions with people and your thoughts about things are extremely artist forward.
I was brought up painting and drawing until 16, 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you had a bit of a positive influence. In
I
that
had a
regard growing
positive
up.
influence. Yeah.
So how are you feeling now in the industry? I mean, it's funny because like before we started recording, you were talking to me about what I'm doing and it kind of with this attitude of like, good, you're still working in the industry a little bit, you know, like because I assume you're referring to the fact that people are dropping like flies.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just checking in to see how people
are
are
you
doing.
hanging
And a
in
lot of
there?
people, I mean, you know, I think at least from my perspective, it seems like a lot of people either end up moving. So they'll go to like LA or something like that.
Yeah.
Or they'll just end up moving to a different type of company because it's like at some point you need to make money,
More
you have certain
stable-
skills, it's more stable.
industry.
Yeah. But it's tough because it's funny. I mean, Jude and I met 2 years ago, and that was right after you started Immersive Square.
Right.
And right before that, you know, the year before that is when consumer headsets came out or something like that.
Something like that. I think
So,
so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been 3 years in the industry, 2 years since you started Immersive Square. And I mean, we used the word zeitgeist before, and now I just love it. I'm like, just the zeitgeist, like the spirit of the people is down right now. It's changed so much, I think, like since the last time you and I really talked. And so I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Like, how are things going in your head, and how are you coping, and what are you observing about the community right now?
I feel it's definitely hard, particularly recently, you know, there were a couple of companies shut down as well in Seattle.
Yeah.
If you evaluate your opportunity cost of working in a different industry against working in VR, purely from financial gain, it was totally not worth it, right? Because as a product manager, you can probably work in 10,000 other companies in Seattle.
And be much more lucrative.
Yeah.
And,
economics is easy to calculate there.
The economics is very easy to calculate, but I also would like to just really evaluate, just think about why I left my previous job. And when I didn't take other offers that was in a product manager role in bigger companies, I feel inside of me, one is I do evaluate, I do appreciate the opportunity of immersive experience. I do think that everything will converge at one point.
Yeah.
And as long as this entrepreneurs can figure out a way to be sustainable, it's probably not going to be hockey stick anytime soon. But if you're okay with being sustainable, being creative with cash flow, right, and then continue to learn, continue to really appreciate the creative reward. That's why I also create, because I wouldn't be able to just do events. I would like to have that creative reward.
If you have an idea for something that you want to actually make happen, you can just go.
Marinate. I'll season it. I'll probably work on it. Spice it up a little bit. I think that is a complete dimension of evaluating your experience.
Yeah.
And from a business standpoint, I think probably in a year or two, I will evaluate again. Because it will change, right? Once it really depends on if it continue to slightly go up, or it will be more painful just to do a little bit of progress. And then there's also personal wellness, mental wellness. So that's all engaged.
You can burn out.
You can burn out. You can lose patience. I'm not anticipating this to happen. But I am, as an entrepreneur, I prepare for anything, right? It's a part of the preparation.
Part of the being able to pivot.
Being able to pivot, And the part of the pivot is you walk to a wall and you turn 180 degree and walk back, right?
You're like, wait a minute, let me go back to where I was standing and look again.
Exactly. And it's okay. It's really not about, I wasted 4 years in my life. I didn't. I learned so much, became such a better person just doing what I'm doing now. And that's why I'm still here. And I'm also a big believer of working with people. I was talking to another CEO that each little company has one breath to do one more thing better. And then let's work together, and then we might be able to blow something away.
It's so true. I love that.
You've only got so much in your lungs.
Exactly.
Give it one good go.
Right.
But coming back to connection, it's like it takes the group.
Takes the group. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
For you, what are the sort of characteristics that you tend to see or have found most valuable for yourself as well in approaching problems from the perspective of a PM or as a founder? Because it's very similar in a lot of ways. What are those key sort of skills or like character traits that have helped you out the most?
Focus. The difference between a PM, in my view, right? Again, is the ability and the persistency to farm something, because it's different from rapid prototype, right? It's you take a prototype and you have to grow it. That's the difference between cultivate it. And that really requires focus of seeing something through in a measured way. Not just emotionally want to do it, but you still need to. Exactly.
Because that's not good.
There's a third methodology is just really evaluate, even though it's not going to be that big, but in terms of input, process, and output, it makes sense. And then you have to go through that instead of
to learn.
Just to go after another shining toy. The focus is so important. I've seen, in VR, constantly throwing new elements into VR. I think ultimately it will converge. But I try to read upon it, but not act on it. Know the knowledge, be able to connect the dots at one point. But it should not be a source of distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that because you're keying in on the fact that it's always tempting to be distracted by
Very
like every
tempting.
new little opportunity or perceived advantage. You're like, well, I'm working on this thing right now, or we're trying to do it this way, and then a new sort of tool or solution or idea pops up, and you have to have enough focus to see through each sort of series that you go through, each iteration, to actually validate whether it is really not the best way to do it. And then maybe you pivot or change a little bit after that. But if you're never actually making it that far, then you're not making progress at all.
Right.
You're just spinning your reels.
Yeah. And mentally being focused is also more productive too.
I was just reading an article about Warren Buffett and how he is a big proponent of focus. He would like he and Bill Gates and somebody had studied like some of these people it was Warren Buffett and went to Bill Gates to eat dinner, and I think this is a real event. I mean, this person wrote about it, but
it has its value.
And that Mrs. Gates, like Bill Gates' mother, asked them what one word they would attribute to their success.
Yeah.
And they both said focus.
I am 100% like in agreement with this whole sentiment around focus. But I kind of wanted to add to that if there's not, I feel like the perspective portion is actually just as important working alongside of that focus. And so it comes down to like the ability to be intentful or intentional about your focus. Like you find an opportunity, you decide how you want to go after it, and then you focus on it for a while. And you can do that long enough to figure out that it's a good thing, or maybe you throw it away. But if the perspective isn't there too, then how do you even see new opportunities at any point, right? So like there's that, you have that breadth of experience that you gained from your contract or consulting days. So you're able to look at a situation and make correlations and see new opportunities that maybe someone that was only super focused on a certain domain is not going to see, because they just don't have that perspective.
Right. Well, I think what you're getting at too is going back to your point about pivoting, right, Jude?
Yeah.
It's like, and your point about how you keep tabs on things without it letting it distract you.
Yeah.
And so therefore you understand what's going on. Because if you have so much focus and you're buried too deep, you won't even realize like that the industry is collapsing around you, or that you need to pivot.
Until it's too late.
Right.
Oh, what happened?
For example.
There's so many.
That's a VR experience.
But
you don't want to get tunnel vision.
right, exactly. Because there are a lot of people that stay so focused on something, or just feel like they need to finish something rather than being able to pick your head up every once
you
in a
get
while.
emotionally attached.
Right.
to
And
the
be able
thing.
to be realistic and pivot based on what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point. I like that.
Yeah, I think the one analogy I always keep reminding myself is, well, if your goal is to climb Mount Everest, what are the components, skill sets, and what do you financially, how do you prepare to get there? To break down that vision into attainable goals, objectives.
Yeah.
And then the focus is really aligned with the objective. And also measure. Measure is important.
Try to get an idea of what you need to put into each of those individual goals to actually reach them.
Right, exactly.
Incrementally.
Yeah.
How are you measuring success for Immersive Square?
Yeah. How do you go about doing that for Immersive Square or in general?
Right. Well, so you're talking about the financial measure, or you're talking about you're more talking about the business matrix, or you're talking about more of a theoretical kind of
I guess
strategic level?
Well, I guess I don't know.
Okay.
All of the above. I mean, I guess because you are someone, because you had just said how you're big on being able to measure how you're doing, how you get to an an objective.
Right.
And that's going to, I mean, you already just answered part of it, which is there's measuring different things, right?
Right.
And so what are those categories? So one is financial.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a more business matrix, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think financial is pretty clear. It's like, how much money are you
Yeah. Like
making?
that's a pretty straightforward measure.
I'll get to it. I
Okay,
think
okay.
it's a slightly, so financial is an output of your business. What I
Right.
measure is the input. If the input is right, and you make sure you optimize your process and you have the right output, right? So, so Immersive Square's goal is to have lowercase Immersive Square everywhere, right? Let's just put it this way, right? So people are interacting with, connecting through immersive experience every single corner of the neighborhood. Let's say just a aspiration, right?
Yeah.
And in order to measure that, I would say the key thing is to measure the density of events per zip code.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So the number has really gone up compared to a year ago,
Okay.
but it's not enough to make this a viable business model.
The growth trajectory is not.
The density needs to be much higher in order for lowercase Immersive Square is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I measure is I keep looking at the density of immersive events. It's definitely better. And the way to get to it is to develop the resources and tools to support event planners to include immersive technology in their events.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so make
that's
it
how I
easier.
break down
Right.
my priority.
Yeah,
Right,
Make
and
it
like-
easier for them to adopt.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And like you said, I mean, there's the breakdown also of what are events that are happening that are born out of the immersive technology. Like it's there for that versus what's already existing that you're bringing it
Exactly.
to them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you, over time, come up with a sort of, or any sort of methods or approaches to estimating and trying to quantify how much effort or how much work or resources you're going to have to put into a particular set of goals? If you've got an overarching problem that you want to solve, you break it down. And this all being in an emerging space where you may have to do a lot of exploration to actually define those things. And that's just the beginning of the problem.
Right.
How do you tend to approach those kinds of problems in XR?
Walk the walk is the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, and really, so that's why I did mention volunteer is a challenge because it actually takes away a very important labor model input into a sustainable business model for business.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't. I myself volunteer as well, right? What I'm saying is that I wish the volunteers' hours and their time, value of time is still measured. This is the time that worth that much because this is how much a person needs to be paid to contribute to this business model.
Yeah.
And when it comes to business, it's just pure number, right? What's the venue cost? What's the hardware cost? What's the labor cost? And you can say part of it is it can be discounted, but in order for a business to be sustainable, there's just a hard fact of
You can't depend on
that's
it.
the cost.
Yeah.
So going back to this is it's counterintuitive and for me as a person.
Yeah.
But this is something I learned in order to run a business. You have to be an Excel spreadsheet person.
It's so funny
Google
that
Sheet.
you
You
have to
say
be
that
tabular.
because
Yeah.
I was going to make a joke at the beginning of that question and be like, and how good are you at Excel? How much do you love Excel?
Yeah, I learned how to like it. I came from an economics major,
Labor
kind
of
of did a little bit, and I'm not a fan. I like big data pattern. That's how I think. But this running a business also helped me to really understand. Yeah, you just have to get on Google Sheet or Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I
it's
love
like-
Excel spreadsheets.
Thank
I
you.
really do.
hired.
Oh gosh. I'm like, I don't, but I through going through these kinds of experiences, I've been recognizing the value of it and that it's a necessity. Like you
It
have
is.
to do those calculations to be able to know what you're getting into, or even
Right.
make some sort of reasonable projection.
Right. I think the society is sophisticated enough to use certain tools to measure things.
Yeah.
We can no longer circle around the fire, just talk about things, and it will happen tomorrow. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
From an execution standpoint.
You're like, all right, you're going to make a spear tomorrow, and I'm going to weave some new pouches for us to hold things
You
in.
pick some berries, I'll
yeah.
paint some cave painting. Done. I love to live life like that.
Oh gosh, I feel like at some level, like everybody that you talk to these days has at least a small sort of fake, like imagined nostalgia for the simpler times when that's all we had to
There's
worry
always nostalgia is big.
about.
Yeah.
Because everything is just so overwhelming. There's so much
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
I do and I don't. Like, I want all the things that I have in a lot of ways. I just want easier access to a simple moment, you know,
Yeah.
where I don't have to go meditate in my closet for 3 minutes to stay sane.
Yeah.
Or
VR
like climb
is
4
helpful.
hours to go meditate on a mountain somewhere.
Where
because-
everyone else also is a lot of the time.
all of the
and
other
you're just like,
tourists
oh
are
my
there
God.
too.
Yeah.
Dude, do you have like a vision of, well, I guess starting with Immersive Square, because you said you'll check back in 2 years. So where do you hope it is in 2 years?
Well, as I mentioned a little bit, I hope either me or a group of people or someone else can bring lowercase Immersive Square to all the local venues.
Uh-huh.
And which really means is immersive experience become part of people's life.
Yeah.
So that is the vision. And kind of along that line is what you immerse is not violent games. It is
Yeah.
interesting stories, good content, kind of really help people with critical thinking and something interesting rather than mind numbing. I think that can really help rewrite the future of entertainment.
Yeah, like rather than just exploring or exploiting our sort of tendency to
That's
hone
a,
in on
yeah,
stimulus.
that's a great one because I think somehow our digital experience became the success matrix to measure a successful digital experience is the on-screen time and the stickiness in the sense
Engagement.
that addiction, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at all those features, constant scrolling, random likes, and those features are all to grab you so that you become addicted to that superficial feeling.
Yeah. How much time are they spending?
How much time you
in
spend.
engaging with your app or
Exactly.
your site?
And I want VR and immersive technology bring this very grassy, very organic digital experience to people so that they won't be addicted. And if they are not addicted, they will have choice,
Yeah.
right? So if I feel like it, I'll very objectively choose that because I know at that moment that's perfect for me.
Yeah.
And the key thing is also to have physical installations nearby people. It gives people opportunity to go out and connect with others.
Yeah. Don't try to bring everything to the home so that all we have to do is just stay at home all the time and play VR.
Right. I don't think that's probably 10% of people.
Yeah.
And they only have 24 hours.
Yeah.
So you can't build a product for that 10% of people hoping they will have 250 hours. It's not
Like you're
going
not
to
going to
happen.
get any more engagement.
Right.
So.
Just to think about how the public would like to engage.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a general sort of theme and hope that we can, or goal that we can move back towards liberating people in general from these sort of technology like chains that we've tied ourselves down with by incentivizing our whole marketing and industry, the internet, all on these sort of time sinks. We can give that agency back to people.
I hope so. And it's going to benefit marketing people too, because it's not a force feed anymore. It creates very organic way of brand loyalty if you bring pleasure to people's experience
Yeah.
rather than a force feed. It's all reward based. That's not good.
more more breadth and depth of value
more
rather
depth of
than
value.
just
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've been thinking about a lot lately, or that we haven't already covered? Of course.
I think the whole artificial intelligence that's in association with the XR is very interesting, very intriguing to me. That's kind of one thing I do subscribe myself to in terms of reading upon.
Yeah.
New
peripheries.
The new peripheries, and it's going to be integrated more powerful than most general public would be aware of.
Yeah.
And I feel that
I think it already has in so
to
many
really
regards.
it's really know how they can be connected. So the way I feel about it is XR is still more of an experience right now, right? And AI is more deep in the foundational level and data level.
It's become part of the infrastructure and like the systems.
It's an infrastructure system. And it's really about the floodgate being lifted and then boom, two of them just will get together and become more powerful. So I think as anybody who's not in AI should read upon it and know what's the implication of those.
Like what does it enable or allow you to do with your particular area of expertise?
Exactly. If you are a 3D model creator, what does it mean to you? If you are a character builder, storyteller, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
If you are a sound engineer, what does it mean to you? I think those are really interesting. Not to be afraid. I'm actually pretty pro tech, but be aware of the thought, the logic behind it will be very helpful to make critical thinking.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that I would put it out there. At least you don't need to know how, but you need to know what.
Yeah, or what to ask, basically.
Or what to yeah.
That's
exactly.
just the beginning of a question,
right?
Of like AI is this new sort of purview and of technologies that can benefit basically anybody in any different industry. So what are ways that I might be able to use it in mine?
Right.
Or like your particular area of
right.
expertise.
Right.
I feel like XR and AI are similar in that regard. They're both sort of kind of like software, having taken over and integrated with so many different industries and continuing to evolve in that space. XR as a sort of blanket of enhancing the overall experience over time. AI is integrating into how we build and construct all of those experiences as well. Yeah,
it will be very interesting. I think the way I look at it is you have a presentation layer, which is what XR is creating, what we see.
Yeah, it's integrating.
And there's an AI layer, which is how we think.
Yeah.
And then when these two put together and put in such an immersive way, it's what is the impersonation?
Yes.
How are we going to create a monster, or not a monster, but an angel? But we need to know.
Yeah. Wow.
That always comes back to that same sort of dichotomy with like all technology, because you can go back to like literally the fire, like the first technology that we came up with, or maybe it was a stone tool or something, but you could use that tool or that fire to both cook food and sustain your tribe, or like cut down trees or some sort of materials and dig things to build, or you can use it to harm and be destructive. It's just how that person or group decides to use it.
We have a tracking record of being destructive.
I mean, we've done a lot of destructive things. We've also created a lot.
Like, hey, I can also kill someone with this.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I think it's always the human element in the middle.
Yeah, but that's important to have checks and balance. I think it's just not to slow down innovation. I think it will help with a more healthy and sustainable innovation for us.
Transparency, I think, there's a really important factor there in just how we're building things. For a lot of the history of the industry, all of the development happened very much like behind closed doors. Research wasn't being shared as much, and a lot of the knowledge was kept in sort of limited silos of teams and people. And we can probably be a lot more responsible and conscious of how we're building things moving forward if we're just doing a better job of communicating and sharing all those insights as it seems like more people are beginning to do in the industry now.
I
Or
think so. I think they're open AI organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like the XR space is kind of taking or adopting that cultural movement as well from a professional
So,
perspective.
do you guys feel like people are staying too separate with those things? It's like one investment over the other, meaning it's like the new shiny thing. Either you're choosing Bitcoin, artificial intelligence,
It's a buzzword for
like
each one.
XR, it's like
Yeah.
choosing one rather
Yeah.
than seeing them all together. I mean, that's the kind of feeling I get, at least, about
Yeah.
these different areas. Do you feel similarly?
I agree with that observation. I feel somehow we are always told that there's a limited amount of investment out there
Right.
in emerging technology.
Right.
If it's not here, then it's that. I would say AI probably a little bit more is getting a little bit more adoption right now.
Yeah.
More investment now
I feel like it's actually
compared to XR.
we've figured out more ways to integrate AI and use it to improve existing systems and improve on existing problems. Where like if you take like language translation, for instance, before, I mean, we built systems that didn't use AI explicitly or like machine learning to kind of statistically analyze the language. We would literally build systems where we programmed all the features of that translation. If these particular things happen, then this set of meanings comes from that grouping of words. But we've improved upon that by using AI on that existing problem. I feel like XR, it's particularly difficult because what we can apply it to is more abstract in some ways.
Yeah.
And how we integrate it with our existing experience.
I think so. If I can add a little bit to it,
Yeah.
I feel AI is at the point they actually solve specific problem that's tangible.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why
It's
investors
useful.
It's useful.
It's very practical.
But
right
useful
now.
is a very subjective word too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But just by on the face of it, AI, you have predictive this, predictive that does make sense.
Yeah.
And it does improve productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And XR is more about controlling in a more direct, immersive way for something. And it still requires that data intelligence for what you are controlling, what's problem you're solving. So I feel that's the reason that probably investors are having a hard time in investing in XR. Because what's the problem we're solving?
What's the problem?
The novelty is more difficult to
Right,
to
experience
conceptualize.
is so abstract. It's like, what problem? Oh, we want better experience.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a problem.
Hey, we're all
problem-
experiencing things. What more do I need to
But
experience?
that's why the corporate world is actually having a lot more adoption because
Yeah.
training is a real problem. You improve productivity of training,
Yeah.
and meeting makes sense.
Connecting over distance.
Connecting over distance.
Yeah.
So those are corporate application is definitely getting a little bit better. Now, arcades and the entertainment center is a separate thing. It's just entertainment always gets certain amount of investment.
Yeah.
It's just the indies and some experiential experience are not getting
Yeah.
enough investment.
Well, VR kind of came up early. It hit this sort of surge over the past few years
Right.
as basically on the wings of the game and entertainment industry in a lot of ways.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, which is like why that sort of hype cycle. It seems like that's why that hype cycle has kind of happened, and now people are getting burnt out because we're running into okay, well, what else can we do with it? And
Yeah.
we need like more new blood basically to come in and figure out new ideas and broaden from that base.
I would say, yeah, I think we should not be like look at ADD like almost like wanted to do everything, right?
Yeah.
It's really look into what are the problem needs to be solved in that particular industry, in that particular vertical, and then come up with a good solid experience to solve that problem.
So like think of it almost like a tool to apply to new problems.
That is how people would like to adopt any technology. Is it solving any problem?
Yeah.
right?
Well, if we think back to, let's say, film, what problem was film solving? Because I feel like you could look at that and be like, oh, but that was just entertainment. And so is that a different story? Is that playing devil's advocate and being like, is that...
That's like, what problem is entertainment solving?
Right, like, or
what is the
gaming,
value
like, why
of-
has, certain gaming has blown up, and like Twitch, Jesus. I mean, it's like, who thought, what problem was that solving?
I need to watch this person play video games for me
So,
for like 8 hours a day.
But it was solving, it was discovering a need, which is that kids wanted, and kids and adults and whoever want to actually watch and connect with people through watching others play games. Because I think what's interesting about that is you had a lot of quote unquote gamers like sitting maybe, alone. Like, it's fun to play these games with other people. But if you don't have friends that are into it, or you can't, it's not convenient, like they're not at the house with you, their parents won't let them out, whatever it is. I mean, that's a way of finding a community, right? Like, it started with connecting through, you can speak into the thing, and like, with Halo and all this stuff. But now you can actually literally like see someone playing and watch them as if it's in your living room and they were your friend playing, and they're skilled at what they do.
And they're talking to their audience the whole time.
Right.
Often,
and, So that's an interesting example of like, you wouldn't have said that was a problem to start with, but you're discovering a need. And with film, I don't know the answer. I'm sure we could look it up, and if we have listeners, maybe someone will know. But it's like, was it that they needed to capture things like wars? Was it solving what was ultimately advancing film and storytelling and all of that? Was it solving problems, or was it purely just, which it might still be the same case as it is in like VR and all of that.
Yeah.
Just people gritting it out, not making any money,
Was it?
for life. It's still to this day in independent film.
People
you know
being
what I mean?
extremely passionate about
it's a passion project.
It's just passion. So I think that might just be
donation.
how it is. It's going to be the exact same thing, which is just that there's going to be money to be made in certain areas.
I was going to say, it's a new business case off of theater. Is if I have this sort of live performance happening,
right,
and there's this camera thing, what if we use the camera to film actors doing things, and then I could take it and basically sell that experience
to more people. They don't have to be in person.
Yeah, they don't have to be at the theater.
Right.
And then you just happen to discover all these advantages. Like, I can control the shot, and I can do different angles. And
but that's going to be, and
that's
in some ways,
that's incidental almost.
It is, and in some ways it's almost like in support of the big, massive gaming projects where it's like, well, if they're going to get the audiences, if they're going to get people to put headsets on and start to bring it into families and bring the costs down and figure out some of this stuff, well, maybe that's a good thing. Like, we shouldn't hate too much on it.
Like the capitalistic aspect of it is what incentivized us to actually explore that medium more.
Right. What's interesting, I just learned today, actually, so it was from my friend Yang Yang, who is from China. So I don't know if this is the case in China or if he just knew it from other countries, but he said that outside of the US, the short film culture is very different.
So.
Basically, like, the fact that we have a hard time finding short films here, like, it's just in festivals and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
You don't really like go out of your way.
You have to go
to pay.
Like spelunking through YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. You have to go spelunking. To find it. You have to like remember a name from a festival, which, by the way, it's blocked for like a year, and then you're never going to remember it because they can't release it until then. And and that there's this whole culture that we have around short films, which make them really inaccessible, which makes it really hard to make money off of them.
At that.
Yeah, and there's no like real central platform where we can watch short films, like, and where he was saying outside of the US, they actually will show them on TV, or like maybe in our, maybe there's a forum like Netflix or something that does that. But I think coming back full circle, it's like, so we could say, oh, well, it's all going to be the same. And these experimental experiences in VR is just never going to make any money.
Yeah.
They're going to have this life just like independent short films do, or just independent films, where they're really powerful and there is a community around them, but it's a tough business.
Yeah.
Or maybe we take lessons from that and understand, like, how do we fix that? Why is it that independent films and short films got to be that way when there is such a community around it, So, I don't know. I hope it gets fixed.
I do think distribution in this space is has a lot of
a big
interesting problem to solve.
Yeah.
And I am in the kind of distribution type of.
Yeah.
I want to find a way that VR can be more accessible in more places. And VR is very similar to short film, right? 6 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
And there are several ways to do it. One is having an Amazon Netflix version that allow people to watch that short experience or experience that short experience at home.
Right.
Or have lowercase Immersive Square everywhere, and the people just go out and, hey, let's go experience a 5 short tonight.
Yeah.
So there are all different ways to solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're to tangent back to the Twitch situation where like there's people that have an audience and they're engaging directly with them. That made me think to like the earlier question of just why are there celebrities at all, or like what is the novelty of celebrities? Because that's basically a case where somebody becomes a celebrity and it's through this medium where their whole audience can engage directly with them in real time on a regular basis and basically develop a sort of one-to-many relationship with them and still be able to give input every now and then. But what is it? Is it just a more fundamental psychological part of humans that we are entertained, or we feel like we need to engage with some sort of person or medium like that? And what does that serve? Like, what do we get out of that? I don't have the answer for that, but
that's interesting. It makes me think we need VR celebrities. That's basically what it means.
Yeah, we need VR streamers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hopefully, have there been any cases like that? They can do someone in a VR chat room, celebrity come to VR. Oh, that's the thing,
They
right?
do
You have
that a
Avatar.
little bit, yeah.
Avatar actually takes away that connection with the
VR personality.
Yeah, with that person. That's
yeah.
I
feel like Twitch is so easy, like because literally anybody that can get on a browser or a phone can just hop on there and watch somebody.
It can be like a passive experience, like they're just doing it while in the room. With
you can
other
put it on in the
people.
background. And just have it going all day. And a lot of people, I feel like, do that while they're doing other things. But like VR is so, you have to be kind of intentional about it right now in the present form.
very intentional.
Yeah, like
determined, intentional, go all the way out.
I'm gonna interrupt everything else I'm doing and potentially punch walls
and see an avatar.
Yeah.
But that's for now. I think I do
right
think
now,
that
the barrier.
Yeah, it's a barrier.
But as that lowers, maybe we'll get VR streamers.
Right. I do think that VR industry lack. I hope it's happening soon. A personality that's only existed in the VR industry.
That's defined by that.
Defined.
Yeah.
You can only go to VR to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because I think that's just because everything else that we've adapted to VR is from a pre-existing industry for the most part.
Because that's how the titles get, the studios partner with some existing copyright, make another VR version of a Disney story.
Yeah.
So in people's head, there's a notion that there's a character exists on a flat screen.
I guess like basically the vast majority of everything that we've been doing in VR thus far is like, to use a term from the video game industry, it's a port.
Yeah.
It's a port from existing mediums or experiences in those forms to VR. And we're not making that much of like VR specific.
Right.
It's only something you can do there,
right.
to go back to your statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need more of that.
Well, everyone's always talking about it's another thing beaten to death, the killer app.
What is the killer app?
Maybe Beat Saber.
So
well, that's basically Guitar Hero.
Everyone's just like, at least we have Beat Saber. I feel like the people who created Beat Saber just had no idea that that's what they were creating, and everyone's just like, thank God for Beat Saber.
Beat Saber saved VR. That's the only reason we're still doing this.
Yeah, no. I really do think, all jokes aside, that what you're doing, Jude, is part of exactly what we need. It's so necessary to make it accessible, to get it out to people, to create connection over it. And people are not going to come to us. I mean, I can barely, with all my experience, have the patience sometimes to set up the headset and do the things I want to do. And we have to bring it to the people, and we have to find the best ways of doing that and finding the best audiences. And I love that you're doing that. So I hope that in 2 years you reevaluate and there's really no need to, because you're just
I hope so. I'm striving for it every single day.
We'll check the Excel sheet.
We will.
But all colors will be green.
Yes.
The tabular data will look much more optimistic.
Anyways, well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's always awesome talking to you, and we just really appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Very in-depth discussion. Thank you.
Hey guys, it's us again.
Hey there. We are still in the same frame of mind as in the intro.
We're still awkward.
Yeah. But
we hope you enjoyed that episode.
absolutely. I mean, we definitely did. We thought it was a markedly different than some of the other conversations we've had before.
Yep.
A lot more focused on sort of the product and business struggle side of surviving in this space.
Yeah.
And I loved that.
Yep. Jude is somebody worth following, as all of our guests are. And she's an amazing...
We know how to pick
She
them.
is an amazing human being. And yeah, you should follow her. No, but really. Okay.
Where can you follow her, though?
Okay, so this is where... Hold on. I'm pulling it up, Jay.
I'm impatient. I just want to know.
Okay. Here we go. So Immersive Square, you can go to immersivesquare.com. That's where you can find those events.
Right.
Highly suggest that.
That is
so
her business.
Immersive Square, spelled just like you would spell it. Immersivesquare.com.
Look it up in a dictionary. It's immersive and then square.
We'll also link it
.com.
.com, which is .com.
Right.
Okay. That was a bad joke. Okay, so
like comrade or... Yeah.
C as in Charlie.
Or
oh my God, we're so annoying. Okay, so all right, so immersivesquare.com, that's where you can find out more information about that company and also find those events that they're putting on, which is great. The other thing is you can follow Immersive Square on Twitter at Immersive Square. Once again, spelled very...
the way that you would find it in the dictionary.
But also, if you forget what we said or how to spell Immersive Square, have no fear, because we will link this in our website. What's our website,
The
Jay?
show notes are here.
Oh, have no fear, the show notes are here.
Yeah. Our website is realityquestpodcast.com. That's where you can find all of our latest episodes and show notes for each so that you can dig a little bit deeper if you want to connect with guests that we have.
And I would like to just put some hype on the show notes because we talk about a lot of different obscure things, also things that are not obscure. But either way, Jay and I have started doing show notes, which means anytime you want to go back and see some of those things we referenced, the experiences, the books, whatever it is, the articles, we are putting that on the website. So you can go to the website and find all of those links just for you. We do this for you.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Right.
Your labor of love. It is all for you.
Yeah. Okay,
Dear
what else?
listener.
So that's the website. Where else can they find us?
You can also find us on Twitter at reality_quest and Instagram at realityquestpodcast. That is probably those two are probably our best sort of venues right now where you can see the latest posts and art for the episodes, which I think is pretty cool. But you know, that's just me.
Wow. Self-promotion at its finest.
You know, it was
Jay does the art. So, and actually, no, genuinely, it's so good. I love it. We also share pictures of us. We did like a photo shoot and in like space suits.
Oh, I was a photo shoot in space. I don't remember
Not
that
in space, no, in space onesies.
Yes, space pajamas.
And so once in a while you get some of those golden nuggets. This is so random, but I wanted to share that I recently started posting on Twitter more. I've confessed in previous episodes where I am not on Twitter at all, and I just want everybody to know that I'm working on it. And I've started.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and this actually isn't through the Reality Quest ones,
It's
but
just your
that's
personal
fine.
Twitter.
But that's okay. Maybe it'll help me. It'll
Right.
guide me into doing more with Reality Quest Twitter.
Right.
But
I've also been on a journey,
Yeah.
a quest of my own.
Wow, nice.
to be open and real on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's not something that comes naturally to me either.
Ugh, no. Ugh.
But
Yeah.
whatever. We could all get better at things. That's one of my goals for this year.
Right. Yeah. The one I'm doing the same as you, trying to post real things, and also somebody told me just start with retweeting things. I'm
Right.
like, yes, oh, excellent, I can do that. And so I'm just trying to do that. And of course, like I end up retweeting the weirdest stuff. Like I think one of my posts of like my 5 Twitter posts I've ever done is just like about Eminem's latest performance at the Oscars. Eminem.
Oh, okay.
So Eminem, if you haven't seen it yet, Eminem did a performance at the Oscars, and he performed "Lose Yourself." And everyone, this recent Oscars, okay,
Yeah.
you remember what year "Lose Yourself" was from? Everyone was
Yeah.
like, "What
Was
is
it like 20
happening
years
right
behind?
now?" What?
Wasn't it like 10, 15 years behind?
Yeah, I mean,
Like
so
when-
basically he was supposed to perform, like they invited
Originally.
him to perform when 8 Mile, the movie, came out.
Right.
Can't remember the year or whatever, but definitely a while
Mhm.
ago. And then I guess the idea was that he was coming back in order to fulfill what he had missed before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love Eminem to death. Literally, no hate on Eminem. That's like the only thing. Like, his rap songs I have memorized, and it's stupid. I know that he like is awful to women sometimes, so I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but whatever. Love Eminem, always have. And he performed "Lose Yourself," and the best part about watching that performance is watching the reactions of all of the audience, which is just like a lot of white people just like getting so intense with their face and like bobbing, and then it'll like
Just a lot
go
of
to
intense
Martin,
faces.
yeah, and then like it's just like kind of like concerned almost, but super into the music,
Right.
and then it will just like suddenly show somebody like Martin Scorsese who looks like his eyes are closed, like he's just kind of sleeping or something. Anyways, again, we'll link that in show notes so you guys can
These
enjoy
kinds
it
of
too.
obscurities, if you want to enjoy further, because our 2.5-hour episodes are not enough,
Right.
you can go and look us up on
Totally, yeah.
realityquestpodcast.com.
And hey, friendly reminder that we love your support. And honestly, one of the best things you can do for us is subscribe and rate our podcast on whichever platform you review it at or listen to it on. And so that would be super helpful to us. We can keep growing a following. And then there's also ways you can monetarily support us, which is to donate on Ko-fi or Ko-fi, whatever you want to call it.
Which is like great for just literally buying us coffee,
Yeah.
or Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. Right. Yeah.
Patreon is a great way to subscribe and support us on a recurring basis each month. If you really enjoy the episodes that we put out, or you benefit a lot from the material and the content that we're creating, and the people that we bring on, the ideas, the thoughts, whatever, support us through Patreon. That's a great way to show solidarity.
Yeah,
And-
so that we can buy more candles for our romantic recording,
more,
evenings.
More Chesapeake Bay mind and body candles. Serenity and calm. For better podcast hosts.
Yep. So there you go. There you have it.
Tune in next week for Thoughts on Thoughts. We are
Yeah.
now doing a weekly basis release. We're trying that
Hashtag
out.
tots.
Tots.
Thoughts on
Hashtag tots.
Tots, 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 tots. That's going to be our intro song for those, I think.
Yeah, I think we'll change it up.
Everybody. All right. Anyways, we don't know how to finish things. Are we done here?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening.